Professor X Wild Reign begins in the Marvel Universe. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 31. The third day that Spider-Gwen announced that she would not do it. The flour mill case still made no progress, and Mrs. Gao seemed to have evaporated from the world. Because no one could have imagined it. A gang leader in Hell's Kitchen is actually familiar with Alexandra, the president of Midtown Circle Financial Company. The latter was willing to take a huge risk and hide Mrs. Gao. As we all know, in Eagle Sauce you can do whatever you want as long as you have money. With Alexandra's power in New York. Want to hide someone? Who can find it? The flour mill case here is at a loss. Another case that shocked New York took place in Queens. Queens's largest bank was robbed. The robbers were 12 in total. These robbers used the weapons of Zatari technology, and the fire was fierce, and the detectives in Queens suffered heavy losses. Moreover, of the 12 wanted people, 2 people are listed separately. Belongs to extremely dangerous people. One was Tums, dressed in a vulture suit, who was in charge of air support on the day of the bank robbery. On its own, 3 gunships were destroyed. And another, Scorpion McDonald Goggin. He was a friend of Tums. His suit is agile and fast and suitable for close combat. Goggin had a strong desire to kill, and more than 20 detectives died at his hands. Also included are 3 bank security guards, a clerk and a bank manager. Vicious cases like this, except for the FBI taking over. S.H.I.E.L.D. was naturally dragged in. Because of the vulture Tums, the suit used by Goggin the Scorpion is similar to the Iron Man suit. Those robbers used Zatari technology. After the transferred case materials were delivered to Fury's desk, he held a video conference. He looked at Tony Stark during the meeting. Because it was the Disaster Control Agency that cleaned up the post-war cleanup of New York. The Bureau of Disaster Control was created with the spearhead of Tony. Tony was the first honorary director of the Disaster Control Agency. According to the truth, all items related to the Zatari people, weapons, vehicles, corpses, etc., are to be collected and managed by the Disaster Control Bureau. Tony yawned and said, Director Fury, you should know that the Disaster Control Agency can't finish seizing those alien items. Osborn, Hammer Group, gangsters of Hell's Kitchen, they definitely have a way to hide alien items. However, we can analyze it. The robbers robbed the bank, which shows that they don't have a lot of money. This can exclude Osborn and the Hammer Group, although the weapons of the Hammer Group cannot sell Stark, but it is still more profitable than robbing the bank. Jarvis, give me the gangster information that New York may have Zatari technology. Tony said to Jarvis, the artificial intelligence. Just for a moment. Jarvis drew up a catalog and sent it to the computers of all the people who attended the meeting. New York Underground Emperor Kim and the Hell Rabid Dogs. Tsarist Russian Gang. Red Hood. Demon Gang. Fury looked at the catalog and said, we can't start with these gangsters. The FBI has spent more than a decade trying to destroy them, and it still has not succeeded. If the investigation starts with the gangster, agents need to be sent undercover, and S.H.I.E.L.D. will not consume a lot of resources on the gang. There is a specialization in the art industry. S.H.I.E.L.D. is primarily an organization that deals with superpowers, aliens, and the world in a way that is a great hazard. As for the gangsters, that's not in their purview. What's more, even if Gene he was captured, those gangsters were destroyed. The land of New York will continue to nourish darkness and criminals. Fury never spends his annual budget on a knife handle. I knew you would say that, so I'll let me know when they commit a crime next time, and I'll take action. Tony said confidently. Fury continued to look at the video of the robbery sent and shook his head. Because the 12 robbers in the video use weapons that are not precise, as if the parts scooped from the second-hand market and Zatari technology are temporarily assembled. After getting a large sum of money. When these robbers will act for the second time is still unknown. Wait for their second action. Weapons are bound to have a big step up. At that time, there will be even greater casualties. Natasha, you leave the matter at hand to John Garrett to do, and it's up to you to investigate it. Fury said to Natasha, a Black Widow who was participating in the meeting. Natasha used to be a top spy. Good at independent investigation, intelligence gathering, assassination, etc. In this regard, she is the top of S.H.I.E.L.D. The entire Avengers, no one can compare to her. Even Tony, who has always looked at no one, did not question it. If he was asked to investigate, he will wear an Iron Man suit and storm the territory of those gangsters. Hold the palm cannon against the head of the gangster boss. Then, ask them to answer their own questions. But those gang bosses can disguise one by one. Wilson Fisk, a well-known entrepreneur in Midtown Manhattan, is also a much-admired philanthropist. Mr. Negative, Martin Lee, philanthropist who set up a homeless shelter in public. If you aim your own palm cannon at them, they will definitely take up the legal weapon to defend their rights. Episode 32, Vulture and others robbed the bank, and the ghost spider did not shoot. The gangsters Dormant in Queens finally understand that the ghost spider, a good neighbor of the citizens of New York, is really on strike. Thanks to the stupid citizens. Thanks to Jameson. Soon, the citizens of Queens suffered. Late-night robberies and home thefts are 30% more than before. The case of gangster fighting directly doubled several times. More than a dozen cases of vicious homicide have also occurred in a short period of time. The police force in Queens is beginning to run out. Imagine that ghost spiders used to exist. The gangster forces in Queens District did not dare to develop lavishly. One accidentally targeted by a ghost spider will be a disaster for the entire gang. Ghost spiders alone can destroy them. Therefore, the gangster forces mostly choose to hibernate. All are making money in a low-key manner. But it's different now. Queens has a huge territory that needs to be rezoned. This kind of hot fighting happens every night. Charles's Hell's Kitchen was not affected in any way. Because Daredevil Matt was on time every night, but the chaos of Hell's Kitchen. Not a vigilante can change. Matt's presence just keeps Hell's Kitchen at a very bad level between the very bad and very bad options. In recent days, Gwen has come to Charles to volunteer when she has time. According to Gwen, this is a course of social practice in schools. It's about love, right? Charles did not debunk her, chatting and playing games every day, how good life is. Charles, a friend of mine went on vacation and went to Hawaii Island, and we will go to Hawaii Island in the future. Gwen said in a sweet voice, like a little girl in love. Your friend? Isn't that friend of yours you? Charles understood that Gwen was saying this to create a psychological cue for him. Ghost Spider is really Gwen's best friend. It can't be Gwen anyway. I remember that Imperial State University started winter vacation on December 15th, and if you go to Hawaii Island, you can avoid this winter and spend Christmas there. But does your father agree? Charles laughed. New York Police Chief George Stacy's tutoring is strict. In Western countries, the general family concept is relatively open. The child went to college. That's adults. Have an independent personality. As long as it is not doing illegal things, falling in love or something, it will not interfere at all. Because that's how my parents came over. Who didn't have several male, female, friends in college. Holiday want to travel. That must be supported, not only verbally, but sometimes even sets will be put into ceremonies. Being in love can. It would not be good if it took human life. But George Stacy was stricter about Gwen Tubes. This is not unrelated to his identity, what girls who were abandoned by scumbags, who were hurt by love and chose to take their own lives, and who were lured astray by lovers. At the thought of her father George, Gwen pouted depressedly. To convince him, it would be harder than catching the Green Goblin. Because of Gwen's relationship, Kurt Connors came to Charles once. Charles is the best student he has ever met. He came with a biological genetic formula this time. This is the closest to a successful regenerative formula in Connors' mind. He wanted Charles to see if he could continue to improve it. Let's be honest. Charles holds a biogenetic formula written on paper. He couldn't think of a better way to improve. He has the strongest brain on earth. But there is a specialization in the art industry. Although he is also a doctor of biology, what Connors has spent almost his life studying is really not something that can be improved in a short time and come up with an optimal solution. Unless Charles followed Connors' team and did research from the beginning. That way. Only then could he hope to develop a truly perfect regenerative potion. Professor Connors, IMHO, I feel flawed in this formula. He may be able to regenerate a severed limb, but that would have a lot of side effects. With today's technology, you can completely attach a mechanical prosthesis, and the flexibility is not much different from the real hand. For example, Bucky the Winter Soldier's robotic arm. Similar prosthetics, Stark Industries can do high-end customization. In the capacity of Connors. He lacks neither status nor money. Charles didn't explicitly tell Connors that if you used this potion, you would become a lizard man. Because even if you say so, Connors wouldn't believe it either. He could see potential problems with the biogenetic formula. How could Connors not see it? So, Charles gave him another suggestion, to fit a mechanical prosthetic leg without dying on a tree. As for whether Connors can listen, that's his question. Charles, you have to understand that human drug development, many drugs are accompanied by side effects. We can't ignore the role it can play because of side effects. Connors said. Charles showed a helpless expression. This is different, Professor. When Connors left, Charles was rewarded with a silver chest. Even the rotten system is rewarded. Apparently, Connors listened to anyone's advice. Unless Charles directly brainwashed him with telepathy. It was precisely because he did not do this that he was rewarded with rottenness. Episode 33. Opening the chest, Charles gets a wandless spell casting ability. While acquiring this ability, the magic wand he used also disappeared and merged into his physical power. Because Charles uses the Elder Wand, even if no wand casting, he can get the amplification effect of the Elder Wand on magic. Oh, that's a really good ability. Charles is very happy with the new reward. This is the world of American comics. Dewey, Baron Mordo, Agatha the Witch, Scarlet Witch Wanda. Serious mages cast spells, who is not rubbing with their bare hands. Poke and poke with a small wand, it is easy to be mistaken for a magic stick. In a word. Shame. In early December, New York saw its first snow of the winter. Crystalline snowflakes fluttered and fell. In the silent and uninhabited night, snowflakes envelop the city in silver. Because Xavier Genius Junior School has been closed for winter vacation, plus snow. Twinkle Clarice pulls up the phantom cat Katie and comes to Hell's Kitchen to find Charles, asking Charles to take them shopping. They prepare Christmas presents for their classmates. Christmas? That's almost 20 days. Charles couldn't help but interject when he heard the two women chattering about buying Christmas presents. Professor Charles, my mother told me that Christmas is just around the corner after the first snow falls in December every year. Katie said. After speaking, I couldn't help but think of my mother. She used to be a New Yorker whose parents died from gang fire and stray bullets. Remembering what had happened, Katie looked downcast. Charles touched her head. Okay, I'll take you to Times Square later, and I'll pay for today's consumption. Moreover, I originally wanted you to pay and we have no money, otherwise why did we come to you? Clarice's eyes were crooked, like a cunning little fox. Charles was speechless and had no temper for Clarice. Clarice is like that wayward little princess. People can't help but spoil. At this time, Jessica came down from upstairs, and she already heard the sound of Charles asking to pay outside the door. Charles, you don't mind adding one more person? Jessica pushed the door in and said. Since falling in love with Charles, Jessica is no longer the scruffy and slovenly look. She's still cool, though. Black leather jacket with a gray cardigan with jeans and black riding boots. It gives a very capable feeling. Charles, are they? Jessica looked at Clarice and Katie and asked. My students, you know I used to be a teacher at a school. Charles said. Before coming to Hell's Kitchen, Charles was indeed a teacher at a school. After all, there were 3 open classes a week. This was not hidden from Jessica. It's just that Xavier Genius Junior School is more special. My Charles has always been very heterogeneous. Jessica joked. For example, that Gwen often comes here to volunteer. Of course, Jessica is not very jealous of all this. Because Charles is so good. Excellent made her feel ashamed of herself. After confirming the relationship with Charles, Jessica never dared to have the luxury of owning a whole Charles. That's like owning the whole of New York Central Park on your own. Very impractical. A group of 4 arrived at Times Square. It is known as the most prosperous crossroads in the world. Around the Times Square Tower, nearly 40 malls and theaters gather. Charles, they went shopping for almost a day, big and small, and bought a whole car. Not much money, actually. Not even spending $100,000, the girls are not very good at buying expensive things. Just as it was time to return to Hell's Kitchen. Here in Times Square, there was a riot in the crowd. The crowd in the distance shouted loudly as they fled. Help, help. There are monsters in the sewers. The monster bit my leg, save me, please save me. Charles, they turned against the crowd and saw something raging. It was a giant rat that looked like a lizard. Charles didn't know how to describe it. Because it can be clearly seen that it is a mouse, but the body is scattered and distributed with cyan scales. The tail is also not as slender as a mouse. Rather, like a lizard, it is thick and powerful. The main thing is the huge size. Any mouse is about the size of an Alaskan dog. When a rat pounces on Clarice, Charles is about to help her solve it, and Jessica throws the mouse away with a punch. Charles, you quickly take them to hide, here I will solve it. Jessica pushed Charles back. She felt that Charles, Clarice and Katie were ordinary people who had no power to protect themselves. In fact, Clarice and Katie's abilities are really not suitable for fighting. But the 2 little girls are eager to try. There is no fear at all. They have taken martial arts classes in school, and their ability to cooperate can be effective, but they have never actually fought. As for Charles, although standing by can be rewarded with rottenness. But the general bronze chest and silver treasure chest are not particularly important. Something that is the icing on the cake. In addition, man cannot throw away all conscience and humanity for reward. How could he agree with Jessica? She hides with Clarice and leaves Jessica alone to deal with the mutated rats. Flames. Charles pointed at a mouse and unleashed a flame spell. The latter was burned by the flames and cried out in pain. Episode 34. Jessica turned her head in shock. Clarice and Katie, no less shocked than Jessica. Charles, do you know magic? Professor, how can you do magic? The girls asked the same questions, which at first glance sounded similar. It's actually two different things. Jessica did not expect Charles to have superpowers like herself. Clarice and the two asked why the principal had other abilities besides telepathy. I'll explain it to you later, Charles said. He flicked his finger again, this time the Avada curse, which killed a mutant mouse that tore a pregnant woman and killed it instantly. There are many variations of magic in the Harry Potter world. For example, black magic, such as attack spells, such as defense spells, and functional charms, and so on. The ability to expose magic. In the future, even if you use shining fruit, telepathy, and other abilities, you can also classify it as magic. Armor protection. Charles swiped his hand forward, and a layer of light and shadow armor appeared on Jessica, Clarice, and Katie. This is an armor spell used to block physical attacks. If it's an attack like an evil spirit. The best effect, of course, is the Patronus charm, Call God to Guard. Charles and they rescued many people, and after the detective arrived at the scene, they drove back to Hell's Kitchen. Leave the finishing touches to the detectives. These rats, which were mutating towards the lizards, showed Charles that Professor Connors had created a regenerative potion. As for why the sewer rats mutated, that's unknown. It may be the reason for the Osborn. Charles cast a thought stamp on the Green Goblin. However, apart from not letting the Green Goblin go out and destroy, the rest of the aspects did not change him. Osborn funded the research and development of regenerative agents to support Professor Connors' research on this new type of drug. It often costs astronomical amounts of money. In the end, it is not always possible to produce satisfactory products. It is possible that of several projects, only one of which can be approved for mass production and put on the market. Biologic companies and pharmaceutical companies invest immeasurable resources every year because they value the future. However, amputated limb regeneration technology. Perhaps there is a lack of progress in research and development. Or maybe the Stark industrial machinery prosthetic market has sunk, making the originally huge market not so big. This made the decision-making level of Osborn decide to break his wrist and cut Connor's project. The Times Square mutant rat appeared and soon appeared in major media headlines. New York has an already difficult policing environment. This is compounded again. Did the mastermind behind the Hell's Kitchen flour mill catch it? Has the Queen's Bank oversized robbery been solved? The case of the mutant rat in Times Square, how long are you going to drag it out? 3 tough questions were asked on the web. The Ghost Spider announced its retirement, and the Divine Power people were not as diligent as before. Only Daredevil like Lamo. Still patrolling Hell's Kitchen every night. In this environment, the security of New York is getting worse and worse. Those who let the masked vigilantes get out. After being mercilessly slapped in the face by reality, he began to pray for the return of the masked vigilantes. Even the Daily Clarion of the Horn was washed away. Under Jameson's Twitter, there were a lot of bad comments, and he was directly scolded for his blood pressure and was admitted to the hospital. Many of these people who scolded him were his loyal fans. Done. This is the moment. The men lashed at Jameson. It was Jameson who killed New York. They believed James's rhetoric before they went to the parade. It was all Jameson's fault. The fanaticism is as good as ever. Anyway, as a populace, no matter who you believe, it's not your fault. Those who are wrong are those upper elites, social mouthpieces. Anyway, shut yourself up. Natasha, who lives in a hotel in Queens, is following clues and searching for photos of past inmates in New York. The clue came from a second-hand weapons recycler on the black market. Used weapons recyclers like these are illegal. They sold the obsolete weapons of Eagle Sauce to all parts of the world through smuggling channels. In addition to dumping abroad. If there are regular customers, or if the bid is right, they will also sell locally. Some time ago. About 3 months ago, the recycler sold a bunch of useless discarded parts. The purchaser is strange. Because look at the personal experience of recyclers. Those rags, it is impossible to assemble weapons. Out of cheap, nothing but nothing. There is no information about the person who bought it, no monitoring data, but the person who bought the parts has a strange tattoo of the evil ghost of Sakura Country on his neck. Natasha muttered. Tattoos like that are not common. After she entered the prison system, she looked for the person by looking for photos. Just then, Natasha's cell phone rang. She glanced at Fury's phone and couldn't help but rub her brows. This guy is better at squeezing than a black-hearted capitalist. Episode 35. Fury was on the phone and didn't ask her how the investigation was going. Instead, tell her about the mutant rat colony that appeared in Times Square. My God, Chief, don't you have a second person to use? Natasha said. I know, so I arranged a helper for you. Fury said on the phone. Is it Tony? It would be much easier if he helped. Tony is working on the anti-Hulk armor. The last time he dealt with Abomination, that armor was not strong enough and almost was dismantled, so he is improving his research. If it is to deal with the Mutant Rat King, he will come out, ordinary mutant rats. Fury didn't finish, and Natasha said, the general mutant rats will be handed over to us. This is what the megalomaniac can say. It fits his character very well, doesn't it? Tony's arrogant personality. It's really annoying. Anyway, he will always have more enemies than his friends. Of course. It is undeniable that Tony's combat effectiveness is the first echelon of the Avengers. Big guys like the Leviathan Behemoth. At that time, apart from Thor, only Tony could handle them. But Tony's gesture was unnoticeable. It's still quite unacceptable. Without Tony, it's okay to have Barton help, we cooperate very well. Natasha continued. Hawkeye Patton. Avengers is the only ordinary person. Fury still rejected Natasha. Barton and Captain Rogers went to Black State, where Magneto was found. The helper I arranged for you is Spider-Woman in Queens. I will send her identity to you. As for how to convince her, it's up to you. Tantra. Natasha couldn't help but burst into foul language. Is this a helper arranged for her? This is the third task given. Damn Nick Fury. When the message was transmitted, Natasha glanced at it. Gwen Stacy, 18, is a freshman at Imperial State University. His father was New York Police Chief George Stacy. Well, excellent family style. It looks like this task is not difficult. Natasha said to herself. Next. Natasha was stuck at Imperial State University, ready to talk to Gwen. But she was delayed by the sales pitch. Gwen was already on the bus to Hell's Kitchen. There was no way, Natasha could only follow to Hell's Kitchen. Because she needs helpers now. And a good neighbor of the citizens of New York, Spider-Woman is a good choice. Hell's Kitchen. Natasha had heard about this neighborhood where New York was the source of sin. It's the kind of place where there are a lot of rotten people. And the rotten people here, seeing a beautiful woman with a hot figure, really dare to come around and do something. Natasha heard several harassing whistles. Then a big man who looked like a dog bear, cheered on by his friends, staggered towards Natasha. Hey chick, I have $100 here, if you want to take it, make me happy. I'm not in a good mood right now. If you don't want to lie in the hospital for Christmas, get out of my way. Natasha faced this big man who was more than a head taller than herself and said coldly. The latter scolded in his mouth, Beachy. The last syllable has not yet been fully pronounced. He was kicked on the calf by Natasha, and when the big man knelt on the ground, Natasha knocked him over with an elbow. Then Natasha walked aggressively towards the big man's friend. 3 times 5 divided by 2, knocked these people down. The people of the sportswear gangster in the distance touched the bruises on their faces that had not yet subsided, and their necks involuntarily shrunk into their clothes. Fuck. The women in Hell's Kitchen are getting more and more uncomfortable. His face had not yet been swollen by Gwen. Because Gwen and Jessica know each other. He could only suffer this loss silently. I don't know if this woman is going to that psychological clinic, or a pseudonymous detective agency. Yet Natasha didn't go anywhere. She ordered a cup of coffee at the cafe downstairs and waited for Gwen to come out. An hour passed. Gwen happily left the old building. Because there is a rehearsal of the orchestra tonight, this is in preparation for the Christmas show. If it was normal, she could have stayed longer. Anyway. Even if the time is short, as long as you can see Charles, talk to Charles. That's a lot of fun too. As for the time wasted on the way back, it doesn't matter at all. A little girl in love. Natasha put away her phone and muttered. She could see Gwen's look at a glance. It is a girl who is in love. She walked quickly to Gwen and said, Hello Miss Spider, my name is Natasha. Gwen wasn't wary of a woman. But when Natasha called her Miss Spider, Gwen's eyes changed immediately, but she immediately concealed her emotions. What Miss Spider? I think you're mistaken for the wrong person. Gwen Stacy, your father is New York Police Commissioner George Stacy, and if that's right, then I'm not the wrong person. Miss Stacy, I guess you don't want your boyfriend to know you're Spider-Woman. Episode 36, Gwen wanted to do it. Natasha spread out her hands and said, I don't mean anything else, I just want to talk to you. By the way, I'm from S.H.I.E.L.D., and I want to ask you for help recently. After Natasha explained her intentions, Gwen's hostility waned a little. S.H.I.E.L.D.? Natasha? She remembered that it was the Black Widow Natasha in the Avengers. The citizens of New York still have a good impression of the Avengers. After all, the Za'Tari invaded. The Avengers rushed to the forefront of Manhattan Island. Iron Man Tony also carried a wooden bullet into the wormhole. Of course. Carrying the bomb, ordinary people are unaware. The White House would certainly not have told the citizens of Manhattan that they had been ordered to be blown up. Gwen learned about this from her father George. As New York police chief, George Stacy knows many secrets that ordinary people do not know. Natasha wants Gwen to help investigate the bank robbers. Because she was in the New York prison system, no one with a demon tattoo on her neck was found. It is possible that the man never went to prison. In this way, the volume of tasks has undoubtedly increased. Gwen didn't do as expected. Immediately promised Natasha. She wanted to ask Charles first. She is not a teenage girl anymore, and when she is fooled, she is passionate about upholding justice. She is a defender of justice in Queens. However, when it was opposed, abused, and denounced by the media and the public, where was S.H.I.E.L.D.? Gwen got on a bus and left. Natasha rubbed her brows. This task is too unsmooth. Look. This is not like the Spider-Woman she imagined. Even if she was attacked by the media and was depressed for a while, she should also adjust. It feels like she was influenced by her psychiatrist boyfriend. There is an old saying in the East that it is called to tie the bell to the bell person. Natasha was ready to tackle the problem at its root. Just as she was about to return to the psychiatric clinic, I saw Charles and Jessica going downstairs together, and the two were ready to go to dinner. In the moment of watching Charles, Natasha's shocked expression almost froze on her face. I'll go. Professor X Charles Xavier? She and Charles had never actually met, but she had browsed Charles's profile in the S.H.I.E.L.D. database. The handsome Charles impressed Natasha. After all, Natasha also thought that the leader of the mutant affirmative action movement was at least an old man over 100 years old. I can't imagine being young and handsome. When it was discovered that it was Charles, Natasha did not dare to approach. S.H.I.E.L.D. and his relationship is not good. Not long ago, the mutants led by Charles also destroyed a mechanized infantry battalion. Natasha only dared to secretly take a photo. Wait until Charles and Jessica are completely gone. She just entered the old building and came to the psychological clinic on the 3rd floor, which was closed by this time. This is the moment. Natasha was 100% sure that Charles was the psychiatrist at the clinic. Also Gwen Stacy's boyfriend. The world is crazy enough. The famous Professor X actually opened a psychological clinic in Hell's Kitchen. Natasha hurried away, while telling Fury about her astonishing discovery. I also sent him the photo. As S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Fury responds to any crisis that is happening, imminent, and potentially happening around the world. So before 2 o'clock in the morning, he hardly slept. When he met Captain Marvel Carol in the 90s, he also had bushy hair. After becoming the director, the top of the head is getting barren day by day. Even the top of his confidant Phil Coulson is thinning day by day. In terms of volume, he is Fury's staunch inheritor. At this moment, Fury looked at the photos on his phone. The only eye emits a dangerous glow. Charles, what the hell are your conspiracies? Fury whispered. He didn't believe Charles would do meaningless things. Run to Hell's Kitchen to open a psychology clinic. Why? Become Spider-Woman Gwen's boyfriend. And why? And looking at this intimate photo, Charles and Jessica have an equally strong relationship. Why is that? Fury couldn't figure it out. But he's a veteran conspiracy theorist. Even if Charles told him to his face that he moved to Hell's Kitchen, it was only because it was more convenient to soak up girls. Fury didn't believe it either. Joke. Will Professor X Charles Xavier be a playboy like Stark? That's when Team America contacted Fury and reported to him about the discovery in the Black State. Magneto Eric, through various methods, let a lot of mutants smuggle into the Black State. Team America and Barton capture one of the mutants, and learn from him that Eric is about to start a battlefield and rule a small Black State. Mutants will be established in Black State. Hearing this news, Fury's body trembled involuntarily. Charles, I know your plan. You let Magneto establish a mutant kingdom in Black State, and you gather superpowers in New York to accumulate power. Fury gasped. In the future, Charles and Magneto should join forces, and Eagle Sauce is in jeopardy. Such a scheme. Surely Magneto Eric came up with it. This must have been Charles's plan. He was still glad that S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't have to face the 2 strongest mutants in the world. Now it seems. This Charles and Magneto have long joined forces. And not a direct war with humans. They used a different approach. Faced with this situation, S.H.I.E.L.D. must come up with a response plan. Episode 37. Charles doesn't yet know that Maya Farkman is working on a plan to deal with the mutants. Otherwise, you have to find him something to do. To deal with mutants. Was the Hydra cleaned up inside S.H.I.E.L.D.? Do vampires hidden among humans know? It's also strange to say. Charles knew that there were vampires in the world because he had seen them in a person's memory. But Charles had never heard of vampires in New York. I haven't seen it yet. You must know that in the Blade movie, New York is simply a base camp for vampires. I went back after dinner with Jessica. Charles uses the Phantom Transfiguration charm to return to Xavier's School for Genius Youth. He went directly to a training room in the underground base. Using magic in Times Square at noon, Charles discovered a situation. Where does his magic come from? If this question were in the Harry Potter world, it would definitely be despised. The power of magic comes from nature and the body. Through spells and wands, mages mobilize mysterious energy in the body and in nature. In some fantasy novels, magic comes from hard work. It's like internal force in martial arts novels. So the great magician is often a gray-haired old man. For example, the melee mage Gandalf. But in the Marvel world, magic often belongs to the outer dimension of magical energy. It comes from the ancient gods of the universe, or dimensional demon gods. It's like the Big Gai. The Big Gai is the biggest debtor of eternity, Vishan Emperor, and Dormammu. In other words, the magical power of the Ancient One was borrowed. From whom did you borrow it? The great god is eternal, the trinity of Vishan Emperor, that is, the all-powerful Ashit, the all-seeing Agamotto, and the old hogs. There is also the dark latitude demon god Dormammu. In addition to the above, the Crimson Dimension demon god Ceterak, the Hell Lord Mephisto, and Gui have also borrowed it. Anyway, borrowed by strength. She just won't pay it back. If you have more debts, you don't have to worry about it, it's about the ancient big guy. At last, Fiorucci simply chose a new supreme mage, that is, Dr. Strange Stephen, and ran to Eternity's side to hide from the debt. Karmatage's mage, magic, is basically borrowed from Vishan Emperor and Eternal. This is also known as white magic. This kind of magic only needs to pay a very small price, such as guarding the magic temple and protecting the earth, and if you can fulfill this agreement, the Emperor of Weishan will be generous. To borrow to Eternity, the threshold will be slightly higher. But compared to Mephitos, who often take souls as a price, it is much better. Black magic as opposed to white magic. Basically from the gods of dark magicians, Sithorn, Dormammu, Mephitos, and Ceterak, among others. The power is great, but the cost is high. For example, the witch Agatha, whose magic comes from Sithon, the god of dark magicians. The price of maintaining magic is to sacrifice life to Sithorn. As for Wanda's chaos magic, an exception is one. Chaos magic belongs to the three ancient forces of the universe. From Wanda itself. After Charles unleashed 24 spells in the training room, he finally determined his situation. White magic originates from the Eternal, Vishan Emperor, and other gods. Dark magic originated from evil gods such as Sithorn, Dormammu, Mephitos, and dimensional gods. But he did not sign a contract with them. What is this? Illegal borrowing? No, the creditor does not know what can be called borrowing, he himself is stealing. Steal by strength. That's a robbery. Anyway, if I don't use magic much. Eternal, Emperor Weishan should not care too much. Ceterak doesn't matter, it is said that this Crimson Dimension demon god is very homely. Sithorn probably wasn't a problem either. He was implementing a strategy of casting fish in a large net, and how much magic he lent was even unknown to him. The more troublesome is still Mephitos. When using the Avada curse, Charles could feel the encroachment of the demonic voice. It is estimated that Mephitos has noticed him. It looks like the use of magic related to Mephitos and Dormammu will be reduced in the future. Hell's Kitchen. Spider-Gwen changes into a tight suit and comes to the old building to find Charles. Who would have thought that Charles was not in the clinic? This disappointed Gwen, and she wanted to ask Charles if she wanted to help the Avengers. If it's S.H.I.E.L.D. Gwen was more insensitive and probably refused at the time. Because the fighter that wants to blow up Manhattan Island is S.H.I.E.L.D. The Avengers are different. Like all New Yorkers, Gwen has a good perception of the Avengers. Do you want to call Charles? Gwen pulled out her phone and flipped to Charles's phone number. Finally tangled a bit. I think it's better to find Charles tomorrow. Anyway, it's not particularly urgent. If you call tonight, what reason will you use tomorrow to come to see Charles in a spider suit? Every time you dress up as a ghost spider to see Charles, Gwen will have a particularly stimulating feeling in the bottom of her heart. I felt that Charles must not know who he was talking to. Return to Queens from Hell's Kitchen. There is still residual snow on the roadside and on the roof. Such nights are exceptionally cold. Coupled with the frequent gangster fights in Queens, there are basically no people on the road except for homeless people after the wee hours of the morning. Right at this moment, Gwen saw an emaciated figure wrapped in a trench coat walking towards the homeless man under the overpass. Isn't that Dr. Connors? Gwen muttered strangely. Episode 38, Does Professor Connors live in Queens? Gwen tilted her tiny head and thought for a moment. She remembered that Professor Connors spent most of his time in Osborn's laboratory. In this icy ghost weather, it looks like Professor Connors is wearing less. I don't know what to do out there. Gwen didn't think much about it, she was ready to go home. But at this time, the homeless man let out a mournful scream. Because Professor Connors was dragging him by one leg and was dragging him on the ground. Is that still Professor Connors? Gwen, who turned his head, opened his eyes wide in disbelief. Hara himself is about 1 meter and 7 meters tall, and Connors is emaciated. At this moment, the trench coats on his body were all stretched out, turning into strands of cloth. His height skyrocketed to 2 meters and a half away. Moreover, Professor Connors is no longer in human form. He turned into a giant lizard man. The body is tall, burly, and the eyes are as cold-blooded animals. He grabbed the homeless man. It's like a man dragging a piglet forward. Letting the homeless struggle will not help. Oh my God! Gwen let out an exclamation. It was this voice that made Lizard Connor's icy gaze cast over like a sword. The two people were separated by tens of meters. Gwen was climbing on top of a building. When Connors the lizard spotted Gwen, like a provoked lion, he let out a roar. Then he threw the homeless man in his hand at Gwen. That force is like a cannonball. Gwen shoots a cobweb from her wrist and wraps the homeless man. One end of the cobweb is tethered to the street light. The street lamp was overwhelmed and crooked, but this height, at most, would drop the homeless man, and it would not kill him. Then, Connors the lizard had already rushed towards Gwen, and he jumped high and stretched out his claws that were sharp like daggers. Gwen streaked quickly through the air. Dodge the attack of Lizard Connors. She didn't choose to go head-to-head with Connors, because strength wasn't her strength, flexibility was. Although Gwen can tow a pickup truck under her own power. However, compared with Connors, who easily knocked over a roadside car, there is no small difference. Spider-Woman. Connors made strange noises. That was no longer his original voice. The voice, like a blade plugged into his throat, was hoarse and harsh. You've opted out. Yes, but I can't watch you kill, Gwen said. This is what Charles said about kindness. The goodness of the heart will make people stand up against evil and save lives. As for responsibility, that's a mandatory constraint. Do superpowers have a duty to uphold justice in the world? No. Because of the reciprocity of rights and responsibilities. I don't enjoy the privilege that I deserve, so why should I take responsibility? Lizard Connors was boiling with killing intent. The bloodthirsty and murderous bestiality in his heart completely devoured his sanity at this moment. This is the defect of the regenerative potion he developed. It's not just people who turn into lizard men. Lizards are bloodthirsty, and the bestiality of killing will also be magnified countless times, constantly eating away at human reason. Connors rushed again. Gwen shot spider silk to both sides, pulled hard, and billboards on both sides of the road slammed into him. Crackle, lightbox billboards accompanied by flashing of electric light. Connors smashed underneath. He roared, and then violently tore open the billboard pressed on his body. At this time, someone from a nearby resident turned on the light. After all, such a big movement. It's still quite curious. It feels like a lion-tiger running out of the zoo. Connors looked around and saw that Spider-Woman was missing. Just as he was wondering, Gwen fell from the sky. It turned out that when Connors was smashed underneath, Gwen used spider silk to swing himself into the air. She could already see where Connor's shortcomings were. Probably the reason for the lizard's body structure. Or maybe like those big muscles in the gym, the back is Connor's attack blind spot. Gwen jumped on his back. Using spider silk as a rein, allowing Connors to jump up and down, just can't shake off the petite Gwen. Gwen took this opportunity and began to bind Connors with spider silk. Starting from the shoulders and continuing down, the spider silk wraps around the upper body. Soon, Connor's arms were hard to open. It's like tearing a plastic bag with your hands. If it is evenly applied, it is difficult to tear open the plastic bag that looks thin. The spider silk looks thin. The actual toughness is extremely high. Together with this binding, all spider silk is evenly stressed. Not only his upper body, but Connors's legs were also wrapped around Gwen. He was tied like a bandaged pharaoh and couldn't move at all. Seeing that someone called the police, the sound of the police car came from far and near. Gwen left Connors here, quickly used the spider silk, and quickly left the battlefield. Episode 39. The next day, media such as the Daily Horn, the Imperial Morning Post, and the Liberty newspaper published news on the first page of the newspaper about the return of Spider-Woman, a good neighbor of the citizens of New York. On their media sites and Twitter, it's all the same news. After Spider-Woman's return. How heroically subduing the lizard weirdo, the media editor seems to have seen it with his own eyes, and the compilation is immersive. Of course. The accompanying picture shows a photo of Spider-Woman and Lizard Freak fighting. This was photographed by some citizens last night. And Connors, a lizard professor who looked like a pharaoh. Spider-Woman is finally back. I think Queens has been saved again. Damn the Daily Bugle, because of the Spider-Woman strike, my newly bought Camaro was stolen. Do you Horn Daily settle the claim? Gratitude, hope to spend Christmas with Spider-Woman. Real name report Queens Razor Gang, they killed my dog, but unfortunately, I am not John Wick in the movie. Ask online, can you propose to Spider-Woman with fear of heights? As soon as Gwen opened her phone in the morning, she saw a lot of reviews. Fortunately, they are all positive reviews. Except for the one who proposed. Also, who is John Wick, that someone says in it? Gwen searched for it, and it turned out to be a movie that was recently released. John Wick in the movie is a retired killer who kills a dog and destroys the entire gang. It's nice to look at the introduction. Do you want to ask Charles to watch a movie together? A few joys and a few sorrows. Jameson, who was discharged from the hospital with a heart attack, returned to the Daily Clarion. He found that his spacious office was occupied, the beautiful secretary was also occupied, and his show was also topped. Jocelyn, what's the situation? Jameson asked, tugging at his former subordinate by the collar. The latter pointed him to a station near the bathroom. Jameson, this is the decision of the company's board of directors. Because you worked at the Clarion Daily for 25 years, I didn't fire you, and you were in charge of the typesetting work, Johnson said helplessly. What else can be done? Because Jameson opposed the masked hero, Spider-Woman announced that he would not do it. The Clarion Daily was scolded by the people. Stocks have almost halved from their highest point to now. The board has made a conscientious decision to keep Jameson a job. Change to yourself, you may drive to kill him. Natasha woke up in the morning, a little disbelieving the content on her phone. Spider-Woman returns? Then, also catch a lizard weirdo in Queens. The lizard freaks have been handed over to the SHIELD branch in New York for overnight interrogation. After comparing the DNA, it was determined that the lizard freak was Kurt Connors, a professor of biology at State Imperial University. Mutant rats that appear in Times Square. It's related to Connors' research. As for the specific relationship, SHIELD is continuing to investigate. After a night's sleep, I solved a trouble, no. It's two troubles. Natasha stretched in a good mood. In the morning sun. Curvy. The reason for saying that there are two troubles. Gwen Stacy, she didn't have to persuade anymore. Yesterday Gwen said to think about it. Natasha knew very well that the so-called consideration might be to ask Professor X Charles. Charles was almost on the opposite side of SHIELD. He would never let Gwen assist the Avengers, or SHIELD. Who knows? It was different from what she thought. Gwen doesn't just put on the Spider-Woman suit again. It also solved the case of mutant mice, with a very fast speed. This kind of efficiency, no matter how you look at it, looks like Charles helped. Charles Xavier, it doesn't look like what Fury said. Natasha couldn't help but think. Charles could not have imagined that he had done nothing, and Natasha's perception of herself changed. Spider-Woman returns, late-night battle lizard weirdo. What a title for the beast. Charles looked at the Imperial Morning News in his hand and was very upset. This reporter understands traffic. A title that makes people think of something. The accompanying picture is also a very eye-catching photo of Gwen wearing a spider suit and outlining the lines. This is a photo taken by the media before. Now it was put up by this reporter with the title Late Night Fighting. Dog stuff. Charles decided to teach this guy a lesson. He looked at the reporter's signature below the press release, Eddie Bullock. Then using telepathy, he directly found the newspaper office of the Imperial Morning News. The newspaper is located next door to the State Imperial University. The earliest team came from the Journalism Society of the State Imperial University. Because it is a newspaper created by my own senior. So Charles gave a little support and ordered a year-old Imperial Morning News. But some reporters rubbed Gwen with traffic, which made him suffer a little. Eddie Bullock. Almost instantly. Charles found him. Under Charles's control, Eddie, who was drinking coffee, poured coffee on the female editor-in-chief. After he apologized, he couldn't help but talk about the boss's black material. And all the black material content was clearly heard by the boss. So the Imperial Morning News has quite a potential new star. He was transferred to the entertainment section and became a glorious paparazzi. Episode 40, Charles, that's the way it is. Professor Connors. It was the professor of biology at the State Imperial University who turned into a lizard man. I can only stop him from hurting a homeless man. At night. Spider-Gwen is in Charles's psychiatric clinic and tells Charles the reason. About Professor Connors. Gwen had brought Connors to Charles. However, Spider-Gwen now plays as a ghost spider. She introduces Professor Connor's identity to Charles, tacitly acknowledging that Charles does not know the other party. Charles said, "I know, Professor Kirk Connors, he used to be my mentor. I advised him about the potion, but he couldn't listen. I hope he didn't hurt too many people, otherwise, when he comes back to sense, he must be very remorseful." The atmosphere in the consultation room suddenly became very low. Meanwhile, in Queens, the Tombs auto repair shop welcomed uninvited guests. 3 black Escalades were parked inside the workshop. Inside the plant, Tombs frowned. This domineering big 7-seat SUV, 3 at once, it doesn't look like they came to repair the car. I'll take a look first. Tombs raised a hand and stopped the others who wanted to reach for their weapons. They were the robbers who robbed the banks of Queens. My usual job is to repair cars at the auto repair shop in Tombs. In addition to repairing the car, weapons will be modified in the basement under the factory building. Tombs walked outside, and a person came out of the opposite car. In addition to him, the 2 cars behind also followed by 8 people, all of them grim-faced warriors full of murderous aura. Tombs served in the Imperial Graveyard. With a glance, I knew that these people were once soldiers, and they were excellent soldiers. He looked at the person who got out of the car first. Without a trace, he looked at the off-road vehicle behind him. Because this person came down from the co-pilot. The door in the back never opened. It is estimated that it is the real, big man sitting there. "Guys, if you want to repair the car, it's closed today. And my garage rarely repairs luxury cars, and you guys are 2 blocks east from here, you can go to Old John's repair shop." Tombs patted the sludge on his body and said, "Mr. Tombs, we are not here to fix the car." The bald head at the head said, "Oh, you guys come to the garage and don't fix your car." Tombs' eyes narrowed slightly. Inside the factory, everyone cautiously looked outside. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that these people are not good. Only Tombs' strong psychological qualities can deal with them without incident. If you change to someone else, I'm afraid that I will snort when I speak. Scorpion McDonald Goggin has gone to the basement to get weapons, and he himself has changed into a scorpion suit. "Goggin, you're crazy, they could be the CIA." A fat man grabbed the scorpion to add roots. "That's why we have to kill them, and there has been no turning back since we robbed the bank," Goggin said viciously. The bald head did not realize the danger, took 2 steps forward, and said, "The car repair shop, it doesn't repair all cars, does it? I have something here, and I think some of you must be interested." A Liberty Angel lighter was found from the Queen's Bank. The FBI was supposed to retrieve the fingerprints on it, but the detective is ours. The words did not fall. Bang! A sound muffled than the sound of a gunshot. A flickering light mass slammed on the light head. It was Scorpion Goggin who used Zatari technology to shoot. Because the Angel of Liberty lighter is his. That action plan. Formulated by Tombs, all wearing gloves and hoods, they could not leave even a trace of evidence of hair. Not to mention your belongings. Carry-on items are not allowed to be carried, just for fear of falling at the scene of the robbery. But Goggin did not follow Tombs' instructions. His portable lighter was left in the bank. He didn't dare to tell Tombs about it. Because there was no police or FBI to come to the door, Goggin thought that the lighter had not been found at all. Scorpion Goggin rushed out of the factory building, just as he was about to continue the killing spree. A voice came from the bald head that should have been damned. "Oh, this is the power of Zatari technology, comparable to a Barrett sniper rifle at close range. If you use ordinary metal, you may be injured." I saw that the bald head's whole body showed a silvery white, metallic luster. This is Edmund alloys. Able to convert the entire body into Edmund alloy, he is the mutant Carl Creel with the ability to absorb slowdown. When he comes into contact with a substance, he can convert the whole body into the corresponding substance. Such as metal, wood, rubber, and stone, etc. Because Creel owns an Edmund alloy ring. So he just turned his body into Edmund alloy in an instant. Otherwise, face that ferocious firepower. There will be no traces on the body. Fuck. What kind of monster are you? Scorpion Goggin said in disbelief. Put your weapons down and don't forget that we are here to talk about cooperation. Creel told the 8 warriors to put away their weapons, and he turned his gaze to continue looking at Tombs. Because Tombs is the boss of this gang. Scorpion Goggin is just a young and arrogant thug. First of all, we are not the FBI, let alone the CIA or SHIELD. You stole more than $10 million from the Queen's Bank and distributed it to everyone, at most $1 million. And we can pay $200 million. It's a lot easier than robbing a bank. Creel said slowly.